Time for reparations. Sounds of Blackness. This is your host, Brother Jumoke Ifetayo. We organized this platform, Reparations Now podcast, as an activist. We knew that one of our goals was to use this as an organizing platform, not just giving you information about reparations, but giving you a way to get more involved in the reparations movement, to get engaged in the reparations movement. And so, and to that point today, we have that goal in mind today. We have Brother Kamm Howard, who's going to discuss with us the Voices for Reparatory Justice Actions Guidebook. What can you do? As I said, what can you do between now and your organization, between now and until he puts forward an executive order for reparations, President Biden? We have developed a guidebook that gives you all of the actions and steps that you can take to move that forward, with the contact information, sample scripts, and everything that you need. And so, as many of us are focusing on Election Day, we're focusing on National Reparations Actions Day, which will be 1 week from today. And again, we're going to bring on the visionary who brought a large number of groups together to put this guidebook together, elders, young people, and from different swaths of the reparations movement. And so we're glad Reparations United and Brother Kamm Howard is going to bring it to us. Brother Kamm, why don't you start out by we appreciate you taking time. We know you traveling and still making time for us to have this important conversation. So why don't you give us just a little bit about the background of Reparations United, and then we'll get into National Reparations Action.
So if I heard you, the sound is a little not as clear as I'd like. Okay. But if I heard you, you asked for a little background on Reparations United.
Yes.
Reparations United is an organization we started in 2022. I got into the movement back in 2006 under the organization of Cobra. I led that organization for about 5 years before starting Reparations United as a male co-chair before I left and started Reparations United. And Reparations United begins with the premise that we cannot win if we're disunited. We cannot win if there's a bunch of contentions in the movement. The only way we can win is there's a certain amount of unity that's being practiced across the movement. And so if you have that premise, if you have that belief, then there has to be some instrument that is aimed at amassing that type of unity that's needed to win. And so that's what Reparations United has determined is its mission. And we seek to unify the movement by laying forth foundational principles within the movement that all of us can agree on, regardless of our philosophy and opinions. For instance, we push forward the notion of full reparations, the international standard of reparations. We started doing that when I was within Cobra. But now, as you know, everyone in the movement are looking at those 5 standards of reparations, 5 points of reparations as the basis of our claim. And also we're pushing forth the concept of our legal claim has to be crime and harm based, not race based or lineage based. It hasn't been tested whether or not lineage based claims will work. We're not against it, but we're just saying it hasn't been tested yet. We know that harm based is so far has been successful in Evanston, but I've always, as I share with Evanston, that it should have been I advised them to do a crime/harm-based foundation. They chose to just do harm, but that's something that we're pushing across the movement that we want people to unify around. The second area of our unification is to craft particular remedies that can be utilized across the movement, no matter whether it's a state initiative or a local initiative. And one of the things we're pushing for is a slavery disclosure and redress bill that mandates that corporations and institutions that are doing business with cities and states must research their records and determine their complicity with the crimes against our ancestors. And if there is complicity, they're mandated to contribute into a redress fund. So we're starting that in January here in Illinois, and we hope that it'll go around the country. And the third aspect of our work with Reparations United is providing opportunities for operational unity. Not just talk about unity, but here's an opportunity. Where's the opportunities for us to work in unison, regardless of where we are in the movement, and what our particular philosophies are in the movement. And so that's what we did with this Voices for Reparations guidebook. It's provided an opportunity for all of us across the movement to work in unity around certain issues, this particular issue.
All right, great. And mostly everybody, I'm going to say, agrees with the 5 forms international standard for reparations.
Yeah, that's right.
But, yeah. So, but there's a whole other conversation. But yeah, so thank you for that, giving us that background. So let's talk about, I guess, before we get into the guidebook, I guess we should talk about the background on what is the goal and the target and how we've come to this point in terms of the evolution of HR 40 that actually brings us to focusing on an executive order.
Sure. So as you know, Jamoke, and many of your viewers know, that HR 40 was initially introduced in 1989 by Congressman John Conyers, and he introduced it every congressional session, which is a 2-year session, introduced it every congressional session until he departed from Congress. And then Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee took it over and began introducing it at that time. This particular Congress will be the last time either of them will introduce it, because they're both ancestors. And so we'll be needing a new co-sponsor, a new original sponsor next Congress in January, unless if this president doesn't establish an executive order establishing the commission. So in 2017, Congressman John Conyers allowed NARC, to National African American Reparations Commission, to revise HR 40, changing it from a study bill to a remedy bill. The original bill was designed to study whether or not there was continued impacts and then make recommendations if there were continued impacts on African people from the crimes of enslavement, apartheid, and neo-apartheid crimes. We changed it to a remedy bill where, you know, we began with the understanding that there's continued impact. We didn't have to study that. The study component would be the extent of the continued impact. And then there's not recommendations, but actual proposals with fixed objectives, timeline, dollar amounts, et cetera, that the commission must present. And then those proposals will be sent to Congress either in full or in some form of package legislation. So that's the legislation we were pushing in 2017. In the 117 Congress, the last Congress, we had 217 confirmed votes. We only needed 1 vote to pass it out of the House. They didn't bring it to the floor for a vote to get that 1 vote. And subsequently, the legislation session ended, and we had to start all over again in this legislative session. Even though we tried as hard as we could to get the legislation out of the House, we knew once we got it out of the House, it wasn't going to make it out of the Senate. But what we wanted to do was demonstrate that there was political will in Congress for this bill in the Democratic Party, and pivot to the president to have him establish it as executive order, knowing that in the Senate you need a 60-vote filibuster-proof majority in order to get it passed. And we knew that we weren't going to get 10 Republicans, not even 1 Republican, to sign on. So we were always positioning ourselves to go to the president. However, we wanted to build and demonstrate the political will in order to do that. So that's what we did in the last Congress, is demonstrated there was political will. And now, you know, we're full speed ahead targeting the president for an executive order.
Okay. And so that leads us to the gathering of the organizations that came together to put together this actions guidebook. And so let's talk about that, a national strategy meeting and Voices for Reparatory Justice Action Guidebook.
So again, I'm having a little difficulty hearing you.
Okay, I was saying that picking up from where you left off, there was a national strategy meeting and of different organizations that produced this Reparatory Justice Action Guidebook. And so
how we got to the national strategy meeting was that we started back in August of last year, the Earn the Black Vote campaign. Many of the leaders within the reparations movement became disappointed and disillusioned with the federal action, knowing that it wasn't going to pass through the legislative process. and began to channel all of our work toward local and state initiatives. I thought that that was an error on the part of movement actors. And so we started Earn the Black Vote campaign to create a grassroots movement to get President Biden to establish the reparations executive order by Juneteenth. And we select Juneteenth because we knew this was a presidential year. If it didn't happen by that time, it probably wouldn't happen because of being too close to the election. And so we targeted President Biden, letting him know that we did the research. We had ran polls to show that he could only win with a significant number of the Black vote, and that he was losing that vote, and that if he wanted the vote, our polls show that he could get the vote back of Democrats who had voted for him in the past. There was like almost 3 million who said they didn't want to vote for him again, but he could get those 3 million back and more if he established a Reparations Commission by executive order. So we had several polls by prominent polling companies to demonstrate that, and we were working in that regards. He was hearing us about some of the things that were happening. He wasn't saying anything, but there was things that was happening in the movement or in America, politics and stuff, to show that he was hearing us. So he had a bad night at the debate, and that changed everything. And he subsequently dropped out of the race, and Kamala Harris stepped in, and that kind of they thought would solidify the Black vote because a Black woman was running, but that hasn't happened, as we saw. But it became too late for them to act on a Reparations Commission because of what they thought what they have always thought it would do to the Republican vote. Can I pause for 1 second?
And so we're getting the background from Kamm Howard on how we have moved from HR 40, and then, as he mentioned, with the Congress, when we had the setback in Congress, so then many movement activists began to focus on local reparations because we were winning in that arena. We were able to not only have Evanston, but also you have the state bill that passed in California, created a Reparations Commission and set up reparations proposals. You had a bill passing in Illinois, the state of Illinois passing a bill to create a Reparations Commission. You had the state of New York passing a Reparations Commission. You have local cities now that have on record creating Reparations Commissions or task force. So there's been a lot of momentum in that. However, all of us know from local or state level that the ultimate goal has been to focus on the national. And so Earn the Black Vote arm of the reparations movement that Kamm brought into existence was to help to get us back on track with the national reparations focus.
So I made it back.
Okay, all right. So
I was talking about how we got to the Earn the Voices for Reparatory Justice. And so we started Earn the Black Vote. President Biden had a terrible debate and changed things. And getting so close to the election, still there was not enough support on the ground, targeting national support from reparations movement, targeting Biden, or targeting Biden for a executive order. And so we knew we weren't going to get it before the election. So our focus was to build a strategy or a set of actions that could be done after the election, because he has from now until January the 19th to sign an executive order. And so we called together organizations from around the country, various political ideology, from nationalists, integrationists to lineage-based groups. And we said, let's come together and craft some strategies. We have identified 4 targets to craft these strategies for. and we needed some actions to engage in that would influence these actors to work in tandem, not knowing that they were working in tandem, to convince the president to establish reparations Reparations Commission.
Reparations Commission. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Oh well, no, I was So in terms of that, what happened was we had the meeting. As I mentioned in my introduction, we had, like you said, various political ideologies, various different thoughts within the reparations movement. We had elders, we had young people, and so we so again, what came out of that was it 17 or 19 actions? I've heard you say
19 actions. Yeah.
Yeah, and so so let's I don't know, we want to break down by target or how
before we go into actions, let me give a little bit more background.
Sure.
That there were about 30 organizations. We wanted all these organizations to commit to engaging in strategy conversations. We wanted them to commit to engaging in actions once we determined what a set of actions would be, to engage in distributing, disseminating the action guidebook once it was created, and those were the major things that we wanted them to agree to in order to participate at our call to action, which we had those 30 organizations give 2-minute to 3-minute presentations on why we needed to act now and why we needed to act in unity. And like you said, we had elders to come out in the movement. We wanted to start with the elders who have been in this movement 30, 40, 50 years, some of them, and have them lead us in this call to action right now. And then we had an intergenerational coalition of organizations that are leaders that also spoke to this need for us to act right now. But again, what we really wanted is unity in action, or operational unity. And so again, we got them to agree that once this guidebook was produced, that they would also distribute it amongst their network and engage in at least one action. We had a strategy session immediately after that call to action, and we collectively came up with 19 actions targeted at, we had pre-identified. There were 4 targets. Those targets were President Biden himself, the Congressional Black Caucus, the Big 8 civil rights leaders who Biden has been meeting with, and had asked them to counsel him on what he could do what he should do in his last 5 months, at that time, 5 months in office for the Black community, and then Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, what we were able to also do at that meeting was to show the data in this country around the Reparations Commission, because people would say a lot of white folks don't believe in Reparations Commission. So in 2019, there was a Huffington Post poll that asked a question about, how do you feel about a Reparations Commission? Do you support it strongly? You support it somewhat? Are you indifferent to it? You strongly oppose, or you somewhat oppose, or you strongly oppose? And in 2024, this year, Liberation Ventures ran a similar poll, asking a similar question. And so we were able to compare those numbers from 2019 to 2024, looking at whites and blacks as, whites and blacks as a whole, and then whites and blacks as in political parties, Republicans versus Democrats. And we saw that blacks, less than 6% of blacks, 6% of blacks oppose a Reparations Commission. 94% now are either support or are indifferent, with the majority supporting, but only 6% oppose. Amongst whites, that number is about 66% of whites support or are indifferent to a Reparations Commission as a whole, and only 34% oppose. When it comes to Democrats, we found that 88% of Democrats as a whole support or are indifferent to a reparations commission, and only 12% opposed. And Republicans, you would think back in 2019, you had 74% who opposed. Right now, the majority are either support or are unopposed. There's 53% that fall between that number of support or unopposed or indifferent, and only 47% of Republicans oppose reparations commission. It's not about reparations in general, but reparations commission. So we see that there's broad bipartisan support at this time for reparations commission. So we want to message that also to the president, as well as messaging to him that he can secure his legacy at this time by establishing the reparations commission. In history, he'll go down as one of the greatest presidents in the U.S. if he was to do so, having established the Juneteenth holiday and the reparations commission. Certainly he'll be given stature as among American presidents. And also we wanted to message to him that there's more and more studies that show that reparations for Black Americans is good for America as a whole, economically, socially, politically, and otherwise. And so those were some of the key takeaways from the call to action, and led us and informed us in putting together the Strategy Action Guidebook, the Voices for Reparatory Justice Guidebook.
Yeah, and that's, I think a lot of people aren't familiar with that, those numbers. I mean, we know they're polls, but I think that is important to show that that there's a momentum for the support for reparations is continuing to grow. I remember sharing with someone some time ago that there was a poll that also looked at America, and by age, they noticed that the younger, under 40 was much more favorable for reparations, Black and white, as opposed to the older generations. And that, when I shared that statistic with people, I don't remember the statistic now, but when I used to share that statistic, I know people really got excited and more hopeful about, reparations moving forward. So
that's correct.
Yeah. So in terms of so we want to get into the guidebook now, and what
sure.
We need to get busy to get done so we can move this forward.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, that's what it was all about, man. Producing this so we can act. We're tired of just criticism and analysis. We've been analyzing the situation. We know that this is the only way we can get a reparations commission. Whether if you believe that Congress or the federal government should do something, there's only 3 branches of government, and you have to go through one of those branches, whether it's Congress or the judicial system. And we know judicially we can't do anything. So the only last opportunity is the executive branch. And so if you're looking for federal reparations and you're not siding with us going through the executive branch, then you're really not honest. And so the guidebook is to give us all a set of actions that we can utilize in these last remaining months of the president's administration, no matter who we are, where we are in administration. So what you're showing now on the screen is some of the many organizations that joined on in this campaign, from Englewood to EAT, Movement for Black Lives, National Black Culture Information Trust, Black is Back Coalition, African People's Socialist Party, Southern Christian Leadership, SCLC of Greater Kansas City, Reparations Education Project, the New Black Panther Party, Get Free, National Black United Front, NBUF, Black Lawyers for Justice, and so many others. And even Erica Lee, who's the daughter of the great Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, has signed on to the Voices for Reparatory Justice Action Guidebook. So this is some of the information of what's the goal of the guidebook. We just lost that. The goal of the guidebook, the rationale that we use. And I talked about the goal. The goal is to get a federal reparations bill commission established by executive order. And that's the chief purpose. All of these actions, whoever's controlling the the guidebook, they can continue to scroll. And we talked about the rationale. We can't pass through Congress. It has to, pass through the executive order. You can keep scrolling. There's more rationale. This is you stop right there. That's the poll that I talked about. So you'll see the numbers. You want to utilize these numbers when you're talking about the executive order, because and reparations commissions, because people would like to tell you that there's not enough support. The white people are opposed to reparations. Well, yeah, 47%, less than half are opposed. The majority, even Republicans, the majority of Republicans are unopposed or indifferent. You can scroll down, but you'll find all this in the guidebook. What's the challenges that we have facing? Again, it can only be established through the executive branch. You can go down, scroll again. This was just stating that it's not over. We still have time. We have until this president leaves office to get this done. Don't pack up our bags and quit now for federal reparations and just focus on local reparations. Everybody must be targeting the president at this time. And we target the presidents through 4 major veins, which I talked about. The president himself, messaging the president, messaging the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressional Black Caucus not only represents their constituents in their district, but as a body, they're supposed to represent all 48 million Black Americans in this country. So in that capacity, we're messaging them. They know from one of their own polls that reparations is the leading issue among Blacks. They did a poll about a year and a half ago, asking what was the top issue. Was it reparations? Was it George Floyd? Was it the Voting Rights Bill, John Lewis Bill, or the National Infrastructure Bill? And reparations had 53% as the top issue in this Congressional Black Caucus poll, followed by John Lewis, followed by infrastructure, and at the bottom was the George Floyd bill. So the Congressional Black Caucus know what our issue is, and as a whole, they should also be messaging the president at this time. And then there was a civil rights 8 big civil rights organizations, which I talked about earlier. And then there's Kamala Harris to round out the 4 targets. So then we wanted to get into actions. You can continue to scroll down. So we have the guidebook is divided into the actions targeted toward President Biden. Then there's actions, I think that's 4 or 5. Then there's actions targeted toward the Congressional Black Caucus. Then there's actions targeted toward the Big 8 civil rights organizations. And then there's actions targeted toward Kamala Harris. And if you stop at any one of those, go scroll up a little bit more. Just go to the head. So this action number, just stop at the top of any action. So action number 1, as you see, we have what are the goals of the action? And it's too small for me to see, but for this one, but what are the goals of the action? And once we tell you what the goals of the actions are, we then go down and say, how do you engage in this action? What can you do? How we want to make it so easy for you to act. So if this is toward the president and we want you to call the White House, we have a link for you to call, for you to link on, take you to the White House number, to the White House page. If you want to email the White House, that we have a link there where you just click on a link. It'll take you to the White House page. You can type your email right into that document and push send. Very easy. If you want to message the president, we have a page where we have all of the social media handles for all of the targets, for the Big 8, for Congressional Black Caucus, for Kamala Harris, for President Biden. We have their social media handles. So if you want to message them, you can do that. And not only that, we have sample scripts. We have sample phone-in messaging script. We have a sample email script. We have actual social media messages. All you have to do is cut and paste. So we make it extremely simple and easy for someone to engage in action. And then after we show you how to engage in actions, if you want to connect with the lead organization who's leading that action, you can just contact them as well. And so when every action is divided like that, what are the goals? Here's the name of the action. What's the goal of the action? Can I engage in it? How can you engage in this action? And who's leading this action if I want to communicate with them? If it's something that, like if you scroll down to action number 5, I think it is. Right, I think, right, this is HR 4. This is a monthly walk to the White House from Baltimore, Maryland. And the goal is to raise greater awareness of the need for the Reparations Commission by executive order, and it's targeted toward the president. And Pastor Turner does a monthly walk from Baltimore to the White House, and he lays a black wreath at the White House gates. And so when it shows how to engage, you just contact Pastor Turner at the email address below to find out what's the date of his next walk. But his next walk is December 10th, so we're going to update this. And then if you want to join the walk, you just contact him and say, hey, I want to get in, not at Baltimore, but I might just want to meet you at the White House, and you can do that. Or I might want to meet him the last mile or the last 2 miles, and you can do that once you want to know the route. So we show you how to engage in the action and who's the leading organizations to contact to engage in actions. And so that division of each action is in each action. Jim, okay? Is there anything, question you want to ask? Or should I keep talking?
Well, I guess the next thing would be we want to talk about National Reparations Action Day. And, I think this is so important. I remember one time I was talking to some folks and I remember saying, just call the president. And one of my friends looked at me, what do you mean just call the president? I was like, well, you could look up the number and call. But it's so good, like you said, that we have all of the specific, information that people need to do the activity, make it very easy, very simple for people. And it's really, years ago, I always told people that, in Cobra and other organizations are doing this work for reparations, but it's going to come a time when we're going to need you to get involved, when we're going to need, more and more people to get involved, the average person to get involved. And now is that time. Now is definitely that time. And here you have a specific way to get involved. So we know that, people are doing this. We want people to do this every day, any day of the week with their organization. However, sometimes it's good to concentrate the energy for at a specific time so they can really feel the impact. And so we have done that as well with the National Reparations Action Day.
Yeah, so if you look across, like even in to the president, the first action was National Reparations Action Day. And here at the Congressional Black Caucus, the first action is the National Reparations Action Day. And you can do that with, all 4 targets. The first action is not the first action because you can be messaging them at any time. But as you stated, we wanted a date where folks across the movement, allies, reparations organizations, people who are not related to an organization, people who are, want to rally their church for something on a particular day to do some action, that this particular day would be set aside for all of us to message all 4 targets. And again, we provided the social media handles, we provided email addresses, we provided web pages where you can leave messages on their pages for all 4 of the targets. And we want just people in the movement. If you're in the movement and you desire reparations, you should be engaging in this action. You should be messaging these targets. What we found out in the last Congress, when we didn't get HR 40 out of Congress, is that we didn't have a ground game. All of our efforts were primarily working inside with Congress, with trying to get co-sponsors, lobbying congresspersons. We got all the way to the point where there was 2 Democrats who were standing in the way. 3 Democrats who were standing in the way. Out of all of the Democrats in Congress, there were 3 standing in the way: Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer out of Baltimore, Pelosi's out of San Francisco, I think, out of California. I don't know what her district is, and James Clyburn in South Carolina. those three were standing in our way. Had we had a ground game, we could have exercised some direct action in each of those locations and forced them to send that bill to the floor. And so what we found out was we cannot win without a ground game. We cannot win without voices happening from around the country, from local spaces, zip codes, et cetera, all around the country. Voices, people must stand up on this issue. So they're here not just from 10 or 15 organizations who are working through the congressional process, but they need to hear it from hundreds of thousands of people around the country. So this is an opportunity. Again, we want to practice unity in action. This is an opportunity for us to unify around messaging these targets, around getting a executive order established before President Biden's administration ends. And so November 12th is that day. It's National Reparations Actions Day. We got to act. And that act is simply messaging from your computer, from your cell phone. You don't have to go outside your house. You don't have to, run any errands. You don't have to buy anything. All you have to do is message. And, we're in a media messaging age. All of us know how to do it. From a 5-year-old to a 95-year-old, we know how to message because this is what the era in which we live in. And so it's very easy to act on this day. And we want everyone who's in the movement, who supports the Reparations Commission for Black folks, to be acting on this day.
All right. So there is we got a question from our brother from Guinea-Bissau, Brother Sipaway Baleka. And his question is there a discussion on how to get the international community and our Pan-African allies involved?
There's not been a discussion, Brother Safiwe. What we're going to do is put this guidebook in some of the chats that you created where we're speaking globally as Pan-Africanists, and put the National Reparations Action Day flyer in. I know there's Democrats abroad and there's other organizations abroad, and even allies. You don't even have to, because this is not just Black people speaking to these targets. It can be anyone around the world speaking to the solidarity that there's a need for this president to act on the history of racialized crimes that have been committed by this government that still have devastating impact upon Black folks in this country. So anybody can stand in solidarity with us and message the president on that day. And they can create their own actions as well if they want to help us. That may not be in this guidebook, and send it to us, and we can put it in the guidebook if they design it under this format of the goals, how to engage, and what are the leading organizations. But thank you, Brother Safiwe, for that question.
Yeah, that made me think about also to what degree we are targeting our allies in the United States, like the Japanese constituents I know who have supported us in the past, as well as other groups coming to the table and other organizations. We'll be working on getting them more involved in this campaign.
Exactly. And so this is, again, operational unity. You don't have to be Black to engage in just a Black reparation organization or a Black organization or a Black person to engage in operational unity on this issue. You can be an ally. You can be a Japanese American. You can be a Palestinian American, as we are allies with their struggle. You can be an African continental American, or you can be an African who's visiting or has immigrated to America and doesn't have U.S. status. You can be anyone of conscience who understands, again, that there's continued impact on Black Americans or Black people in this country from the centuries of crime, racialized crimes committed against us and our ancestors over 400 plus years in this country.
Yeah. Now, I was thinking about how we've had so many celebrities lately on the campaign trail, and they speak so well sometimes about some of the different issues, but I haven't heard them on reparations yet. Like Tyler Perry just spoke recently, Cardi B, Michelle Obama, and others. I think J-Lo. I think other people have been speaking out very strongly around certain issues. Reproductive rights, immigration, voting rights. But I guess we still haven't pushed enough yet where reparations is more top of mind, in their speaking.
Well, there's a couple of things with that. No one's touching reparations before the election. The only person who said something about reparations prior to Kamala, when we were messaging to Biden's folks that he needed to do this, he had to do this. Steve Harvey, who was notoriously opposed to reparations because, he has to do what white folks tell him to do. And many entertainers and athletes have that under that same domination for their livelihoods. He came out and said, well, if y'all want your reparations, you got to vote for Democrats. I think he might have said Kamala, but that was the first time he ever spoke on reparations in a positive form. But we know that was a result of our messaging. They brought him out to counter our message. I think that after the election, once we get these flyers out about National Reparations Action Day, that whenever people are in front of these athletes and entertainers, it gives them an opportunity to ask the question: are you going to message someone on Reparations Action Day? Are you going to participate on Reparations Action Day? There is a short video that we had made at our concert with Eric Benet, saying, yeah, we need a reparations. I'm going to release that. At the same time, we're releasing a press release on Wednesday, the day after the election, announcing the guidebook as well as Reparations Action Day. And we're also going to release Eric Benet's short comments on reparations.
We need to find a video of John Legend, who spoke about reparations, as well as Cat Williams. We have up on our website as well, Cat Williams, talking about reparations. But we
should be dropping anything we have on any entertainer. I don't care how long ago it is, Prince. It don't matter how long ago it is. We should be dropping these videos, these shorts, these reels as they call them, so that that's entertainers who are engaged in arts now will say, yeah, man, I didn't know dude was down like that. I didn't know she was down like that. And it would inspire them to act, because, we live in a herd mentality culture. And when someone does it, and it picks up, then everybody else wants to do it. And so right now, as we're, messaging, we need to go back to Moke and find these clips and put them out there.
Yeah, I like that assignment.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. I said I like that assignment. I like that assignment.
All right. Well, I know you're the person to ask. That's your person to do it, brother.
Yeah. So, and
that's one of our actions. Not to cut you off, but that's one of our actions, is to make video clips. And I think the new Black Panther Party is heading that toward the Congressional Black Caucus. But it doesn't have to be toward the Congressional Black Caucus. But certainly we want to be able to send these clips also, because they're influenced by athletes and entertainers as well. And so are the big 8 civil rights leaders. They're influenced by, cultural artists as well. So we can even send these clips to them as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we could just kind of bring this to a close. It's been a good conversation. I think we could really use this video to also advance the guidebook and the actions. And so I just want, however you would like to close this out, what do you want to focus on and emphasize? And we're going to bring it.
Well, the time is acting now. Our Queen Mother, Dorothy Benton Lewis, who was one of my mentors in Cobra when I first came in Cobra, she's an ancestor now. She says it's not over until we say it's over. That means we're not through struggling for reparations until we say we're through struggling. And that reparations is not complete until we say it's complete. It may take several generations. But we're saying the action at this particular administration, it's not over because he's no longer running for president. It's still time to act, and we must act now. We must act decisive. We must act collective, and we must act in huge numbers. And this action guidebook allows us to do it in 19 different ways. And so you only have to choose one that you want to engage in, or that your organization want to engage in, but engage in some action, because this is the most crucial point in the reparations movement for Black folks in America at this particular time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Brother Kamm Howard. Thank you for your work, for your consistency, for your vision, always stepping up the game and giving us something we can do specifically as reparations activists and as people who are concerned about reparations. Even if you don't consider yourself an activist, again, this is a little thing that you could do, but it's a big thing when a lot of people do it together. So we thank you, Kamm, and we say, Nadasi, Asante.
Eluda continue and Billy Umoja Tishindi and Billy Shaka. The struggle continues. We will be victorious if we remain united.
Ashe, Ashe. So you've been listening to Reparations Now podcast. We've had thank you, Brother Darrell, saluting us in the reparations movement work. We thank you for your work locally in Chicago. And shalom, shalom. So we greet you. And let's get it. So again, my name is Brother Jumoke Vitayo. We're happy to continue to do this show called Reparations Now podcast. We are sponsored by Reparations United so that we can do this work. And we hope that you engage. We really hope that you engage in the activities. You can go to the guidebook. I guess we didn't say that. You can find the guidebook on the website, earntheblackvote.net, where you can download the action guidebook and the different actions. And we encourage you to do so. And I want to thank all my listeners. I want to encourage you to subscribe. And we are seeing an increase in of people watching the show and supporting the show. And so we want you to continue to do that. Tell other people about it as well. And as we close out, as we always do, reparations now, reparations now, reparations now.